Welcome to the Richard Robbins Show, where we coach you to greatness.
Welcome back to the Richard Robbins Show. Today we are joined by a very special guest. We have one of our coaches here. So welcome, Braden Wheatcroft.
Thank you so much for having me.
B.
I love this studio. I'm absolutely blown away.
I love that you're here in person.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So what we thought we'd talk about today is you're obviously one of our coaches and work with a lot of our clients. What are the top 3 challenges you're seeing with our members right now, and how are you helping through that?
Okay, so let's talk about both sides of the business. We have buyers, sellers, and then let's talk about the business itself. So on the seller side, really simply, it's having a listing value proposition that costs you a lot of money to maintain as you have more listings. So simply put, if you have expenses like staging costs that go on each and every month, those are the costs that really eat away, almost a disincentive for you to get listings. That listing might sell in 6 months, but it might take 6 months, right? And so if you have 10 listings at 6 months and you're always investing every month with those services, that's the stuff that's really killing the profitability of a lot of our members' businesses. So that's a really quick switch. On the buyer side of the business right now, I think it's really important to understand who can actually buy a home. There's a lot of people right now that are out there shopping that are just not either fully motivated or qualified. And I think you see sales contract like they have the last couple of years. I think it's mission critical to be working with the right now buyers. So this to me goes right back to your buyer consultation. Like, are you doing a buyer consultation with people? And as silly as it may sound to be this direct, this is what I used to ask my clients, and I would say kind of in a funny way, but I'd say, like, if I showed you the perfect house in a great neighborhood at an awesome price, would you be ready to write a full price offer today? And they go, expletive, no. And they're like, okay, so you're probably sounds like you're more in the research phase than the decision phase. And part of the research phase is to help you get to the point where when you do see a great home in the perfect neighborhood at an awesome price, you are ready to write. But if that's not you today, I get it, no problem. But here's what my level of service looks like for people that's in the research phase. So I'm a big believer that there's 2 phases to the home buying process, research and decision. As an industry, I think we're awesome at serving decision-making clients, and we really struggle with the research ones. Those are good buyers, but probably in 12 to 18 months from now. But stop acting like they are good buyers in 18 days from now. And then on the operational side, um, I think it's really important to focus on your lead generation, but more specifically on learning how to become a good marketer. As digital marketing is becoming, 5 years ago, I might say, yeah, you could do social or you could not. Now, to me, it's where's the attention? It's on people's cell phones. If you're not there, you're really missing out. And so that whole social media is for the kids. I think that's the narrative of a realtor who's not going to be relevant for much longer. And I have a coaching member right now that's 73 years old and posts videos on YouTube. So if you want to make it about age, I will tell you simply put, it's not about age, it's about mindset. So I think you need to get on with focusing on your marketing.
We thought we'd kind of pull back the curtain on what the coaching process looks like and what that coaching relationship looks like. So I think it's a little bit elusive to somebody who hasn't done coaching before. So why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of your approach and why you're such a big believer in coaching and why you became a coach?
Okay, lots to unpack. Well, first of all, I have been coaching with RRI now for nearly a decade. It'll be 10 years in December, I believe, which is amazing. And one of the things from the very first day to 10 years later that I've always appreciated about the company is we refer to it as customized coaching. And for me, as a coach, I love that the organization gives me a toolkit to pull from, but doesn't give me a step-by-step guide of how I have to coach my clients. And, I think any realtors watching this or listening to this, by the way, if you haven't subscribed to our podcast, please do that. I would say that they would get the fact that, like, every one of their clients is a little different, right? You may work with a certain style of client, whether it's an investor or a home buyer, but even in a group of clients like that, they're all kind of different. And our coaching clients are exactly the same. So for me, I love the freedom that I get to be able to really get to know the client on not just a professional level, but a personal one as well. And then pull from our really deep of tools and resources we have as coaches and as an organization. So I'd say that by far is my favorite part about coaching, is that even though I might have 3 or 4 consecutive calls, none of them are the same. And, some days that makes it, you burn more brain calories that way, but I don't think I'd have it any other way.
Well, one of the coolest parts about the real estate industry to me and to us as an organization is there's so many ways to build a great real estate business.
Totally.
And it is such a lifestyle business in a way where, yeah, I understand it can be demanding and you're on 24/7, but you can also structure it in a way that supports the life you want to live.
Totally.
Right.
I always say to my team that there's 100 ways to sell 100 homes. You just got to find the 1 or 2 ways that work for you. And I think, I think Rich would probably take issue with me giving Dana credit for the sweet spot mentality. But I believe that Dana's been coaching me now for almost 10 years. And I hear him talk about it all the time. Like, Dana is a big believer in having people work in their area of strength. And that's something that I definitely resonate with and have continued with my own coaching clients. And so you got to find what works for you. And let's be honest, Jaimie, real estate's a very showy, comparison trappy type of industry. Like, we see what everyone else is doing, and it's very easy to fall into a comparison trap and be like, hey, that's really working for so and so. I should do that too. And it's like, well, it works for them, but it might not work for you. And I think having a coach in your corner who can help, maybe see in some of your blind spots and give you some encouragement where you need it, makes a huge difference.
Huge. I mean, one of the biggest benefits of coaching is you have somebody who's going to come in with this bird's eye view look on your business and start asking you questions that you've likely just not thought about because we just don't know what we don't know.
Mhm.
And when we get busy in our life, in our lane, just in the day to day of what we're doing, we just keep doing it like that because it's very difficult to pull back and rethink how we're doing things to make it more effective.
I'm laughing because I even do that in my own life.
We
And
all
it's like,
do.
so like, that's why I embrace whether it's coaching or consulting or and I mean, I'm one of those people who's got a coach for tennis or has got a coach for social media or has a, like, I really believe in embracing that. And that's one of the things I can definitely say through and through is like getting to know our coaches over the years. They're all really invested in the idea of kind of letting go of the ego and embracing help and having the humility to ask for help. It's pretty cool to see what's possible when you're surrounded by a bunch of people that are all in a line with that idea of getting that help and being open to feedback and being coachable themselves. It'd be kind of weird, wouldn't you agree, if a coach wasn't coachable?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to be a big believer in coaching to be
Yeah.
a coach, to hire a coach. You really have to buy into the process,
Mhm.
right, for it to work. Now, I think for anybody who hasn't been involved in coaching before,
Mhm.
the coaching relationship, I think, can be a little elusive,
Mhm.
right? It's like hard to understand exactly what happens on those coaching calls and what the process looks like and exactly what happens. So, can you walk us through kind of what you do with a client when you get started and how that relationship evolves over time?
Yeah, and can we wind back the clock a little bit in the timeline to how someone, at least in our organization, how they get into coaching? So, like, typically people will see a webinar that Rich is putting on, or you're putting on, or maybe they're listening to our podcast and whatnot, and they'll hear about an event that's coming by, maybe in their town or a town nearby, and whether it's Rich or someone like Chris or Storm even who's doing a presentation, you go into this room, particularly as a first time inductee to RRI, and you're like, I don't know what to expect. And you get into that room. And one of the things I've always loved about our, what do we call it? Our roadshow, our TAWs. I mean, that's inside language.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
acronyms.
Yeah. Our acronyms. But is that, like, it's not about selling you to go to the next thing. It's about giving you value there and then inviting you for the next opportunity if you feel comfortable with it. Right. And so that was actually my journey as a realtor into coaching. Was I think it was Chris Cummins did a workshop for our brokerage. And then there was an opportunity invitation to go to one of the main conferences. And that time, I think it was Vancouver. And so you buy your ticket, you go over there, and then you're just drinking from a fire hose of information, right? 2 days, sometimes 2.5 days of just packed of insights and inspiration and, everything from professional speakers that are keynoting to agents like you or I that are just having success in our local businesses. And I've always found it interesting as a person in that room where I think if everybody took the information they learned in those 2 days and just executed on it by themselves, they might not need a coach. But let's face it, as soon as you leave that room, you open your phone, you've got 3 missed calls, 27 text messages, a bunch of emails, you've got clients, to serve when you get back, deals on life support. And a lot of the stuff in that notebook ends up becoming, how many dad jokes am I allowed in this podcast? Like
Limit 5.
5? Wow, that's actually more than I've ever had
Pretty
before.
generous.
Okay, wow, okay. So I call it shelf development instead of self-development, because you write all down the notes, you put it on the shelf, and like a year later, you pull it off the shelf, you open it up, the cobwebs come off. You're like, what did I learn again? Yeah, that happens a ton. And I think that's where, when you're at one of those events and you get to hear what we do for coaching and how it works, to me, it's less about the ideas. It's more about the implementation of the ideas.
Sure.
Right? Because I honestly believe ideas themselves, although they do come in different shapes and sizes and qualities, the idea itself, even if it's a great one, is useless unless you put it to work.
Well, if information was the problem, we'd all be successful.
Yes.
We all have so much access to information, probably
Totally.
too much access, right?
Definitely too much. Honestly, I think we're in an era where information is actually the problem. Yeah, not the solution. So I just wanted to set the stage for someone, kind of like the client journey for us is that you might see a free talk in your local town. You're going to go to the big show, whether it was Vancouver or Toronto. I'm really looking forward to Toronto's event this year. And then you have this sort of gut check moment of like, ooh, do I want to take the plunge? Do I want to invest in coaching? And for a lot of people, they make a decision at their first event. And for other people, it might be 5 or 6 events. I'm curious to know from your perspective what you notice the differences between people who decide on the spot the first time versus the 5th time. But nonetheless, they come to that decision. They're like, you know what, I want to do this. And they enroll in our coaching program. Do you want to enlighten anyone on what that might look like from that point? Because I know you're kind of directly working with people.
It's a scary decision for anybody.
Yeah.
Right? To invest in coaching. And I think if you
What's
weren't
scary about it?
Well, I think if you weren't a little bit nervous about the process, then, that would be kind of odd, right? Because you're just jumping in, you're kind of taking that leap of faith in a sense. But here's what we notice is if you jump in and you are committed to the process, it will work. It is I understand it sounds very simple, and it is simple, but it is a lot of hard work. It does require a lot of work.
Simple and easy are not the same thing.
No.
Right?
No. Yeah. So I think by making that decision and taking that leap of faith, you got to jump all in. And if you do, it works. It really is that simple.
I'm curious from your perspective, because I'll give my answer after, but when you say jump all in, what is it to actually jump all in? Like, I just hired a coach, I've invested in this organization, and I want to get the highest return on my investment. Like, our members that do get that highest ROI, like, what are they doing, do you think?
So they're really invested in the process, right? If you come into coaching, if you're like, I'll give it a shot, but I'm not sure it's going to work, then it probably is not going to work.
Yeah.
Right? That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
But if you come into this process and you're like, I am ready for this, and I am going to take my business to the next level, I am going to commit to the process and jump all in, it will work. And what that looks like is you have super open and honest conversations with your coach. You're not holding back, right? You're on all the impact calls. You're immersing yourself in the community and getting to know other coaching members and attending the conferences, attending the member events, the retreats. And I understand it can be a lot, it can be overwhelming and sometimes intimidating to kind of jump into a new community and a new process. But when you do that, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so cool to see. I love to see the evolution and the journeys that our clients have been on. We've had clients in this coaching program for like 20 years consistently and never left. And they're still here.
Is that what Rich is? Slow learners? Is that his bad joke? Is that what he says? Yeah.
Well, I think that's what he says. But I think there's like an evolution in your business.
It's a commitment to excellence is what
Absolutely. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think totally spot on. I think the 3 things that stand out with the members that I've worked with that have really made the most is first and foremost, I hate that how maybe coachy cliche this is, but it's like get comfortable feeling comfortable. If the idea of making the investment in coaching was uncomfortable, it's like stay in that state of discomfort. Don't kind of sigh. Okay, I wrote the check. Oh, let's get back to my cozy zone. Like, no, we're gonna ask you potentially to try a different approach. And I think one of the things I've learned is that you don't go from try to get someone from step 1 to step 10 in one leap. You get them from step 1 to step 1.5, and then step 2, and then 2.1, 2.3. So it's a natural progression, but one of the consistent feelings that people have is a little bit of that discomfort, which I think, as we say, that's where the growth is. I think you're spot on when it comes to getting invested in the community. Like, as biased as it is for me to say as one of your coaches, I think, coaching is obviously a big part of the value proposition, but it's not the only part, right? So like the conferences, the community, the relationships that you build, it to me is almost as valuable, in my opinion, as the coaching. And I don't mean that today with any disrespect to our amazing coaches. I just think it is when you invest in the community invests in you, right? And you kind of get this amplification of the ideas and whatnot that's happening. I'm sure it's really cool for you at head office to see groups of our members going on vacations or setting up their own masterminds together and stuff. And
I
it's
just saw a picture this morning of a bunch of our members in Kelowna right now, and it's so cool to see the relationships that are built through this community, and it's powerful.
Yeah, well, hey, the reason why I'm here today, in Ontario, in your amazing studio, is because I'm here for one of our clients' weddings. So, it's amazing how you get to be not just part of their business, but their life. So yeah, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, investing in the community. And then this is just a very practical thing is whatever the amount of time you're working with your coach, I would recommend that you book an additional amount of time to work on the stuff you talk about with your coach. We do typically like every 2 weeks, 2 calls a month, I think is roughly what it works out to. And so I've learned after coaching people weekly or once a month, I actually think bi-weekly is my favorite rhythm, especially for experienced agents, because if you need me, your coach, to call you every morning and tell you to get up out of bed, I think you got bigger problems, that we're not going to be able to solve in a coaching session, right? That's a foundational thing. If it's a once a month call, I find people get off track and drift way too much. So you just don't make any progress. But every 2 weeks is enough time for us to talk about a thing, agree upon what you want to work on between calls, and you actually have enough time to make some meaningful progress on it. So if you and I are chatting every Thursday at 9 a.m., I'd say every other Thursday, have that same time locked in your schedule to actually do the work. Or some of my members enjoy doing the work right after a call's done. But I think that's the biggest productivity lift advice I could give for anyone in coaching is make sure you block off time to do the work you talk about in your coaching. Otherwise, it's easy for it to end up slipping into this sort of friend zone, quasi therapist zone, which sometimes is what people are wanting, and that's cool too. Although my wife, who's actually a therapist, would argue that that's not cool, but that's her opinion, right? So, but anyways, I think if you want to actually see meaningful results, block in a little extra time outside the coaching call to do the work, and you'll be amazed at how much you can accomplish.
Well, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through kind of your coaching process? Like from the time you get a client, what that looks like the first 60, 90 days and how that relationship changes over time?
Yeah, and I think my answer to this question has changed over time as I've gotten more experience as a coach. I think both things can be true. We want to be able to understand the destination that you want to get to, but we also want to enjoy the journey, right? And so we have an amazing onboarding process. I mean, you can speak to it better than I can, but as a coach, my inbox. I get an email from RRI and it's like, hey, you've got an amazing new coaching client, and here's like their life story and what their goals are and their strengths and their personality profiles through a system we use. And so I even just from reading that email, I've already got a pretty good sense of who I'm about to start working with. And then, of course, being a millennial, I can't help myself. I digital stalk everybody. So, like, oops, I look at on LinkedIn and I'm looking on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. And between the onboarding survey that I get and their socials, I usually have a pretty good idea of who I'm talking to. For me personally, I like to jump on a quick call just before our actual official call, just to almost just hear each other's voices, kind of get some of the first day of school nerves out of the way. And then we set our call times and we go from there. As far as the first, say, 90 days, I think for me, I'm always mindful of what the goal is for the year, but I also want to understand like what would have to be true for you to feel good about your coaching investment on the 90th day. And it often isn't this huge, grandiose thing. But if I didn't ask that question, it's amazing how I wouldn't have actually known that was the answer. That's what they were looking for. So it's some kind of combination of trying to get them some quick wins because they want to be able to know that their investment um, it was a wise one, but also knowing that this stuff takes time. Like there's no 6-minute abs in coaching. Trust me, I tried.
Yeah. I mean, coaching is not about trying to do everything all at once. It's much more focused on small, consistent actions performed over a long period of time, and also a very focused approach to what
Mhm.
your goals are, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm gonna yes end that because 100% I'm all for it takes time, it takes effort and all that. But like honestly, anyone listening or watching to this might go, well, I don't want to put in time or effort. Like I want an instant gratification. And I could say that it's possible to get a little bit of that. Having,
Sure.
when
Yeah.
you're sitting down with a coach, you're not just sitting down with a person, you're sitting down with a person who's probably advising 10, 20, 30 other agents in their coaching practice, and you're connected to a community of hundreds of other agents. I think that we can make a few little tweaks and someone can already start seeing a difference fairly quickly. An example audience probably can relate to is golf, right? If you've ever had, a quick golf tutorial sitting with a golf pro, like even something as, hey, just changing the way you're gripping the club can already shave a couple strokes off of your game if you do that. Now, are you going to win your club championship as a result of that grip change? Probably not. But you're going to kick your friend's butt next time you play, which is going to be a good feeling. So I think it's kind of having both of those things in mind. It's like, what is the big ultimate goal, and how can we make some progress relatively quickly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Now, can you talk to us a little bit about, obviously, we're in a more challenging market right now. How has your coaching changed from when we were in a really strong market to when it's a little bit more challenging now?
I don't know if this will be a popular opinion or not, but I don't really believe in challenging markets as much as I believe in preferable markets. I think every agent is going to have their own preference of what they like to work in. That's not to say that what people are experiencing right now isn't difficult. Um, I've been in the industry now for 15 years. I could probably say I've seen my very first full market cycle where like I started in '09 in the recession, and a couple years later it was a normally balanced market, and then all of a sudden the market got cooking again, and then it crashed, and then it came back. And so I've seen that full cycle, and what I've observed is the things we complain about today were the things we prayed for in the previous market, right? Like finally I have sellers, thank goodness, right? And now you go, well, now they're going to sit on the market and not sell, right? Versus if I got a buyer right now, I'd be stoked in today's market. Whereas a couple years ago, when you'd have to show 57 homes, lose 23 times in multiples, and then they go for a year, you didn't want that buyer. So I really, a metaphor I use is like, don't bring your, like hockey and soccer are both great sports. But if you bring your hockey skates to the soccer field or you bring your soccer cleats to the ice rink, you're screwed, right? So like you have to have the right strategy for the market that you're in. So the first piece of advice I'd have for anyone is know your market. Know what's going on at a local level. Know what's also going on maybe at a national level, global level. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be practical to your business, but ask yourself, am I bringing my hockey skates to the soccer field? Because there's a lot of people that are, right? There's a lot of people that are using the playbook that did work and serve them a year and a half ago that aren't anymore, right? Because I promise I don't talk like this to our coaching clients, but at the brokerage I do. Until we have a month that 0 homes have sold, you don't have the right to complain about the market. As a recovering people pleaser, it's hard for me to take such a hard line, but it's true. It's like there are homes that are selling, and until there's 0, the question should be, how do we make sure that when there are some homes selling, it's our name in the trade record sheet, right? So yeah, I think awareness of the market that you're in, know what the best practices are for that market, and again, one of the things I would throw back to the RRI community, like whether it's external content that Rich is putting out, like I love the 3-month market review videos. I love that versus a month over month, because 3 months gives you a real trend that you can look at. But even the conversations that are going on in our impact calls or on our private Facebook group and whatnot, there's a lot of market intelligence that's taking place there that people are able to put their finger on the pulse a bit more and get some perspective. Um, and then I think, again, knowing once you know the market you're in, it's deploying the right strategies. So, for example, just very practical. If in today's market, what are we? I don't know when we're releasing this, but it's the year 2025. Um, if you have a listing strategy where you have recurring expenses with your listing inventory, i.e., home staging, hey, it was great to spend $1,000 a month on home staging when everything fell in 2 minutes. But now that things are taking 6 months, it's like that's where I'd be looking at with my member being like, let's look at what it costs to onboard a listing, but also what does it cost to maintain a listing? And do we have to invest in those maintenance items? Maybe we can take those off the books.
Okay. Thanks so much for being on today, Braden. You're a phenomenal coach and you bring so much value to our community. And we're so grateful you were able to be here in person.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love the studio.